and welcome back to another episode of the Mental Breakdown Podcast. In this episode called Don't Stress, Just SOS. We are so glad to be back and are very fortunate to be here for our fourth episode. And we hope that our episodes in the future can shed light on important issues that teenagers and students my age or older face. My name is Sam.
My name is Laura, and we are your hosts for today's episode. We're incredibly blessed to have the leaders and co presidents of the BSGE SOS Club. They're from the Baccalaureate School of Global Education, and this is our first club chapter that we're establishing to spread mental health awareness across New York City. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Mind introducing yourselves?
Hi. So my name is Anastasia. I am the main president of the SOS Club in BSGE, and I'm a big STEM lover, and that's probably the biggest attribute that you'll know about me.
Mhm.
Then
Yeah.
Ariana.
Hello guys, my name is Ariana and I'm one of the co-presidents at the BSGE SOS chapter. Um I I'm really excited to be here. I really love writing and literature and music, and I guess that's it.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Julia. Um, I'm the vice president of the club, and I'm really excited to get started with this podcast. Um, I'm really happy that we could expand this club to our school. A small thing about myself is that that's like related to today's topic is that I'm really into music. I
Yeah.
play piano, and I'm really looking forward to see what everyone else has to say for today's podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. But before we start, I just want to say how grateful we are that you guys um
Hi.
wanted to become an extension of the mental breakdown. And I wanted to ask you guys, how has the experience been for you guys to start an SOS club, and what does it mean for your school?
So the experience so far has been really cool. It's been the first time that I created a club in general. And the fact that we're starting off with something like a mental health club is really big for me because it's definitely been something that I've always wanted to do. Our school definitely really needs it, um, especially since we're in the IB program and it is a very stressful and mental health draining program.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to have a club where you can basically talk about it and get to know other people that experience the same thing.
Yeah.
If
I
my
totally
co-presidents
agree. I think that leading as a co-president at the BSGE branch of the SOS Club has been such a transformative experience. At first, it began as a way to address specific challenges, like whether mental health or other subjects regarding that. But then it quickly evolved, for me at least, into a platform for creating change and building connections. And I think for the school, the SOS Club, like Anastasia said, has become a symbol of what students can achieve when they come together and talk about their feelings. And I feel like it also encouraged myself and others to be more proactive. And becoming the co president showed me that leadership and empathy can happen at any age.
Period.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, I also agree that like our school probably needs a mental health club as well. But it's been really nice. I feel like people really do participate in the club a lot, and I'm happy to see activeness with our club members. Hopefully we'll see more students joining too.
Yeah, I want to first say we are so incredibly proud of you guys and your willingness to start a club chapter. And over the summer, actually, we had the honor and privilege of collaborating with this organization called Teens Together and organizing a bake sale in Brooklyn. And we actually had no plan of expanding the club. We were just so happy to just be in the presence of NYC. And we are just so excited to see how far you guys are going to go in the club. And you guys are doing such an amazing job. I see the Instagram post. Actually, you guys can follow them on BSGE SOS. And I think it's time that we can get into our first question.
Yay! Thank you guys so much. Now, starting any initiative starts with a passion and a vision. It's very important to understand when our passions can be healthy or destructive and instill better coping mechanisms to help them grow. A lot of our students at our age want to start their own passion project, especially for college applications. How do you guys think the pressure to succeed in a specific passion contributes to its destructiveness?
Okay, so this is a great question to start with. Um, Personally, I've never heard of a passion project, but when I read how it was described, I guess it's not really off as to what many people naturally do in their head, especially before college. So pressure to succeed is a very natural thing that most students have. High school is a big factor for that, especially because we're not only wanting to succeed in high school, it's also wanting to succeed in doing good enough to get into a college, and then, of course, later on, doing good enough in the major that you want, and so on. So, I feel like the pressure to succeed in a specific passion specifically is much higher because the disappointment of knowing that you can not reach your passion in the future is still there. And that tends to cloud people's mind, especially when they're stressing out a lot on, let's say, minor stuff like preparing for a test. Let's say you're preparing for a test and you think, okay, it's just a simple test, right? But deep down, you're like, oh, what if I fail this test? My grade's going to go down. Colleges are going to see that. I'm not going to reach it. I'm not going to reach my dreams. So definitely wanting to succeed has a lot of moments where it can lead to destructiveness because people put themselves down a lot whenever they fail or think they fail. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with Anastasia on that. And touching more on the passion part, I think the pressure to succeed in many students often turns what should be a personal and fulfilling endeavor into somewhat of a chore. And instead of exploring freely, students might fixate on the outcomes, recognition, accolades, or a strong application instead of focusing on what they love and how they view their passion. And especially for students that have a tendency to overachieve, this could lead to burnout, frustration, and even resentment towards something that they once loved. So, to avoid this, I think that it's important to focus on the process rather than the result and let the passion be a space for growth and not perfection.
I think there's a lot of pressure when you're tied down to an external validation, like a college application, because you're potentially turning something that makes you happy into something that might become a source of stress and also self-doubt. That can definitely be destructive because it shifts passion to performance and competition.
Yeah, it's everything you guys said with passion, with performance, with the outcome. It's
Hmm.
something that I saw on this like agenda one time. It was like focus on not on the destination but on the journey. And I think it's so important for us as a specific passion that we have to focus on the journey. And it's so normal for us wanting our passions to have the best version of that vision to come to life. And there's so many different harsh expectations that come with that. And we're also juniors, and I can't believe we're saying and that I'm saying that. But the pressure is definitely hitting us to start, like I say, like quote unquote, start something, is because people are definitely thinking of high school passion projects, and I say that very loosely as something that they can just like spit out, and it's something that can be very toxic because it gets almost transactional.
Yeah, I
And yeah.
yeah, I agree, especially with Sam and Ariana. I think there's so many unrealistic expectations that kind of we just kind of feel forced to do everything ourselves. And it reminds me of what our teacher Hossein said this morning. Like especially regarding college applications, there's so many students starting their own like nonprofits, even if it's not a genuine interest of theirs. Like they might enjoy a specific hobby or like area or field, but feel like it's not interesting or impressive enough for colleges and end up just disregarding it completely.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that we don't let also those people that do that get to our head. And I know that like it's like, oh, this person is doing that. I think it's very important that we focus on our own specific journey because everyone's different passions are unique to themselves. And I think that the context in which we pursue our passions are very different as well. So people can be going through completely different things. And I think that we're going to transition that into our next question. And that I want to ask you guys, do you have an experience or time period that you've had to rely on motivation versus rely on discipline to get through a difficult situation? Yeah.
So my motivation and discipline definitely tend to morph into one when I'm stuck in difficult situations. This can be detrimental for my mental health at times because of the way I tend to beat myself up over failing either of these. I discipline myself rather harshly, such as saying, like, oh, I'm not going to get to my dreams, or I'm going to prove everyone who saw me in a bad light, like, correct. And if I don't accomplish a certain thing, and unfortunately, even if this sounds like kind of like a bad thing, it tends to motivate me, which is why I said that they work hand in hand. Um, it hurts a lot when I tend to fail like a high goal that I set, but I always tell myself that it's not always going to be these bad moments. Like there's going to be good ones. It's not always going to be like this. And like if it does tend to be more bad moments sometimes, that's normal and it shouldn't really, I guess, sway me to like just give up as a whole because after that it's just going to be all bad moments, right?
Building off of what Anastasia said, I have an answer that's kind of the opposite. There were times during finals, for example, when motivation completely ran out for me and I had to rely on disciplining myself to keep going in a difficult situation. So, sticking to a routine and breaking tasks into smaller pieces, such as study blocks, where I would study for a bit and then take a break, study for a bit, take a break, and so on. That would help me push through, but it did take a toll on my mental health. And then I realized afterward that discipline alone isn't sustainable without self compassion. So I've tried to balance hard work with rest and reward systems to protect my mental well being.
I've had a few periods of when I had to rely on motivation, and I realized that I couldn't proceed in learning music by just discipline. And I actually had to bring myself to enjoy it and find pleasure in making music because if you keep going without this passion or whatever that gives you determination, it all becomes sort of meaningless and it just becomes demanding on your end.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I wanted to mention a personal anecdote that happened related to the mental breakdown actually that I want to share. Last year during the summer after coming up with the idea, I think technically I'd always wanted to do something with mental health and I didn't know how to start a podcast. I didn't know what kind of equipment we needed. And how people get it onto Spotify or these streaming services. And this is just like me as just someone who just wanted to start or had a passion about like mental health specifically. And the only thing I really know or that I really knew is that I had a voice and that I wanted to use it. And now that sounds very vague and corny in some cases, but I genuinely wanted to learn and experiment and research on it. And um and eventually I have an amazing team right now and we're expanding and I think that it's so special to see how far discipline can get you, especially when sometimes you can rely on motivation to get you through those like short wins. It's definitely those it's important to celebrate those short wins. And I say that because last year it was overwhelmingly difficult for me and my family due to some familial loss and I had missed a lot of school. I was taking like classes that I consider to be very challenging, like architecture, AP Chem, that I still very much love. But and that was when I really needed that boost, especially at the start of the year when clubs were being advertised and approved. So when I lost that motivation, I really relied on not only family and friends to push me out of that, but I really told myself to not ask for permission to stand up, and I needed to be able to hold my hand and get up and use that railing no matter what. And I vowed that to myself that um through and this is through like a disciplinary perspective that like that you have to be your biggest cheerleader and I will stand by that. And that's like that can be like the hardest step because especially when you I say that like quote unquote fail or when you don't meet your highest expectation as Anastasia said, that's the worst part. And I think that becoming like it's so easy to become your biggest enemy, but it's so special for you to become your biggest cheerleader and your biggest adversary. And I think it turns into something that motivates you, and then as something that, as I said, and then that becomes something as part of your discipline. And I think it's so it's so cool to see that that ball rolling is, once you get that ball rolling, that's when the real magic is made. So yeah.
That was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I was just gonna call you Sammy Boo Boo, but I'm not doing that. So I think a
Yeah, that
lot
was
of
really nice.
Thank you.
I beautiful. I think a lot of the time I usually remind myself of what my goal in life is, and that motivates me. But when I don't, I just have to force myself. Because I think trying to wait for motivation is kind of useless because it might not, and if it does, it can fade away just as quickly.
Exactly.
That's really something I need to remind myself about. Like I'm a big procrastinator, so I usually end up finishing a task when I'm on a time crunch and feel very pressured, but I'm trying to change.
No, yeah. Um, yeah, me too. I am a huge procrastinator. It's so hard to trust the process with that, because with doing any kind of thing, motivation, like you said, is it fluctuates a lot. And I think I wanted to correlate that back to like the idea of like the passion project itself. And I think that when starting anything, whether it's a project or assignment or like a passion project, it requires a lot of time. And I think it's important to acknowledge that good things require time. And I think it's good to take time and not necessarily rush things, especially in high school. It's such a short period of our life. And even though it feels incredibly long, it's so crazy that we went from freshmen to juniors already. But we do tend to try to pack everything possible into a week. And this week was, I speak from
Oh my god.
example. Like I think me and Laura, we had like the most stressful week
It's
this week,
horrible.
and we had like immensely tight schedules, and filming this also, like, uh, again, like we can't thank you guys enough for taking time out of your really stressful weeks. But I think it shows that we are just as human, and we can be human and still very much accomplish a lot. And something that my sister makes me do is that she makes me look in the mirror through face and on FaceTime, and she tells me to recite affirmations, which was humorous and funny to me at first, because sometimes they are as simple as "I am capable," and sometimes she tries to make me laugh. And it's like, it's I started viewing these affirmations and small mindfulness activities as less of a task. Like you, Ariana said, you said it's it was becoming less of a chore for me. And I think good work in your life also includes self care, whether it's journaling or meditation or reflecting on your mental state, or when you need to recharge your battery. You can do hard things and you can do difficult things. And so it's important to prioritize your self care. And yeah.
I think it might be time for our next question. So
Yes.
how can you establish boundaries while still not losing yourself, especially in a world that's so constantly online and thrives on social media?
Okay, so for me, firstly, I want to talk about one of my biggest accomplishments. Me and Sam were actually talking about this earlier, but um, when I deleted TikTok at like the beginning of my high school year, I felt so like amazing inside, and it wasn't because of procrastination or anything like that. It's also the fact that getting off my phone and seeing the world from my own point of view and not someone else's recorded point of view, it just feels really nice because, oh, and also there's also the less guilt, Like, I don't know if this is like a mutual experience, but I feel really guilty when I'm on my phone most
Oh
of the
my
time
god, yeah.
because it's like, I feel like
Me too.
I could be using, yeah, I could be using my time for like literally anything right now. I could be studying, I could be reading, I could literally just be taking a walk outside. But here I am on the bed on my phone. But the thing is, sometimes we just don't feel like doing all of that? Like, we just want to sit down, get on our phone, and let our phone take us wherever it wants to. Um, I don't feel like this is losing yourself per se when you allow yourself to be on your phone or going through social media. as long as you don't really make it yourself. Like if you see something on social media that makes you feel bad, that's when you learn that maybe, okay, let's put it down and like remind ourselves of our goals. And I feel like that's what I tend to do if I do see something that kind of brings me into my whole like, oh shoot, like what do I do with this information? You know? Like I take a step back, put the phone down, and then read. Like just just read. Like when I read about especially stuff that I'm passionate on, it brings me back and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is where I need to be focusing myself right now. And I feel like that always helps. So yeah.
For me, establishing boundaries starts with understanding my own limits. So, like for me, that like an example is setting time blocks where I just step away from social media entirely. I just turn off my notifications, put on do not disturb, and curate myself to doing other things that I feel are more productive, such as doing homework, reading a book, taking a shower, doing anything really. And I also curate my feed to reflect things that uplift me rather than drain me. And I also remind myself that social media isn't reality, it's literally just a highlight reel, and people post what they want others to see. They cherry pick their content and it appears perfect, but it's not entirely true because they just show whatever they want to show and it's not the entire story. There's more behind the scenes and that helps me stay grounded. And what also helps me stay grounded is investing time in offline relationships like my friendship with Julia and Anastasia, for example, and my hobbies such as dancing, writing, poetry, stuff like that. And I can stay true to myself while, and also have an online identity as well.
Anastasia, I think I could relate to you because I also deleted TikTok. I mean, I have it now, but I don't know. I would spend like hours on TikTok. I mean, I still do like on social media, but I felt really unproductive. Um, so yeah, I had to delete it. But I think it's really important to take breaks. And yeah, social media can be really discouraging when all you see is perfection and none of the bloopers or mistakes. Um, it's important to realize your self-worth and determination because if you push yourself so far that you're aiming for is just perfection, it converts that passion into negativity.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we can get into the whole thing, and I love what you Ariana said about like how people really cherry pick, and it's a real glimpse about it, and I think that it really grounds me into really focusing on what I need to prioritize, and I think prioritization is really important, especially when you have a lot of things on your plate. And for social media, for me specifically, I use it to either just talk to my friends or advertise school related activities now, because I similar to Anastasia, as she said before, I deleted TikTok. I think rising sophomore year, and it was the one of the best decisions of like how much it like affected my mental health. And I think this goes back a little to also what Ariana was saying, is that social media really also responds to you. It's like it is an algorithm, and it like feeds you more of the things that that you like or that you comment on, and or that you save. And like yes, social media can fuel your passions, but it can also turn into something where it markets that passion. And social media has made me in some ways romanticize my passion, which has turned into stress. And but sometimes there are certain sides to social media that can make end up making you feel more behind. And I think that goes back to the first question when we were talking about passion projects. And I think I saw a lot of videos related to like the typical formula to like excel in your college applications. And I found out that it was extremely toxic for me to digest. And I think I found myself comparing myself to a lot of people, and I got in a way like lost in establishing boundaries. This was so hard, but especially when it's so easy to do something as re-download an app. But I think it goes down to the motivation discipline part, where you have to ask yourself like, what are my values? Like when I deleted TikTok, I removed every single thought of me asking myself, like what do I need to have? And I start to ask myself, what do I have that's special that can help others? And when I did that and I changed my mindset on how I viewed myself, I cultivated values that I found truly passionate and established a healthier relationship with social media. And I still use social media, and I still definitely need to work on being less online and procrastinating. Obviously we all procrastinate to some extent. And obviously we still always it since we go to like really competitive schools, we still compare ourselves. And I think it's important to just look at the progress that you've made like in that journey, because progress shows discipline, character, and effort, and that's all that matters. And yeah.
Yeah, I agree with well everyone. I also deleted TikTok. But I downloaded it like 3 days later. Um, but I did feel really good about myself. And I
Yeah,
think I think
3 days
sometimes
is
letting
amazing.
I know, right? I'm so proud.
Yeah.
I'll do it again one day. But I think
I don't think 3 days is bad at all.
uh,
Back when I was like on Discord so long, 3 days would be
Oh
so
my
bad.
goodness. Yeah.
yeah, I think letting things go is what's best for you if it's actually harming you. And yeah, regarding social media, whether it's blocking someone who's just you can't stand to look at their life, or just
Yeah.
deleting the app in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, yeah. I go back to the blocking people from the life part, cuz it's just it's interesting to like see like how someone that you don't really know can have a really huge impact onto how you view yourself. And I think it goes back to like sometimes it can develop like some kind of parasocial relationship when we kind of develop an interaction or connection with someone that we don't really know online. And I think social media, especially like when we talk about like specific media that like entertains us specifically, like that can like be sometimes very engulfing. And I think that the social media that I was on specifically when I downloaded TikTok was really college app TikTok. And it was like the TikTok where like people were put like the camera in front of them while they were like looking at their college application decisions, and like their family was behind them, and they were like exploding with like crying. And yeah. And I was like, this is really great. And then but it also really made me focus on like, is this what I would want to have? Like, is this like what would I apply for? Like, and it made me like start to really overcompensate. And I think it made me focus less on the present. And I think it's important to focus on the present. And um, you know, we can I said it's important to like not get focused on the different relationships that other people have to social media. And I think it's especially in a world that's consistently online, it's so normal to be interested in what other people are interested in. And simultaneously it's vital that you take your time and embrace the times that you take for yourself. So whether that's like self-care, and like last episode we talked about like mental checkpoints and how basically everyone's journey is different, and how you can identify the steps that you are on and like the placement you are in your mental health journey, and how you can take steps forward in that. And given social media, a lot of students and teenagers face a lot of FOMO, or like fear of missing out. And this is something
Yeah.
that I relate to, especially when I have anxiety about studying a lot. And I either want to relax or hang out with friends after school. Like sometimes I would just like in the eyes of just making plans, um, I would just I would just cancel because I just have too much stuff. Yeah, Anastasia, you want something? Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah,
I wanted to go back to when you were mentioning college app TikTok.
yes.
Um, that hit like a really close spot to home right there
Yeah.
because that might have been like one of the biggest reasons why I deleted TikTok.
Oh yeah.
I saw this one girl who got accepted into like every single Ivy League and like just every single dream school, and I was looking at that, and in my head there was like one question I guess that was playing. It was like, can I imagine myself in that same situation where the tears that I'm shedding are happy like hers? And then I guess I was like, I was pondering that like for more than I'd like to admit. And like, so like I literally put my phone down and then I was like, hold on, like that's an interesting question that I just told myself in my head, which is totally not weird. But and then I was thinking, I was like, you know what? Like, I don't want to think about that right now. Like, it's literally eighth grade. I have time. Um, like, if I will find myself in that situation, I will just remain hopeful because that's all you can really do.
Hmm.
And I don't want what other people are being happy about to bring me down
Right.
because that's definitely something that I've definitely struggled with a lot. And because even though I don't know the people, obviously, because it's a random video on TikTok, it's like they're happy. And you know what? Good for them. Like, it's nice
Exactly.
for them, but I don't want that to make me be like, oh God, like, what do I do? Like, no. Good for you. You got into your schools. Now I want to focus on getting into the ones that I want to get into. And that's kind of like the mindset that I tried to follow. And then, of course, I think 3 days later, I officially deleted that.
Hmm.
And I felt that great weight removed off my shoulders.
Yeah. I think it's such like oh it really felt like such a weight. And I really want to really emphasize that like it's so important to look at your own journey and not compare it to anyone else's journey. And it's so normal to feel like whatever you're feeling as guilt when you see someone else succeeding and you feel really ashamed of how far you're into your journey. And it's so hard to trust the process, and I've said that before. But um I also would go back to like last year when everything was really hard and really struggling to like start the podcast, and like architecture class was just terrible and I was just not understanding, and I felt like my standards had to be lowered in order for me to be okay. Because my standards freshman year were very high. Well, actually, all of middle school were very high. And then yeah, they were just over the top. And then sophomore year, I think it really grounded me to like really make me focus on just like, okay, well, your personal life is kind of going crazy right now. Let's not set unrealistic expectations for yourself, and let's turn that around and turn it into something where you can not spiral. And I think spiraling is so it's when you get caught up in your own like mind, you start overthinking, and that can again lead, like you said, Ariana, burnout. It can lead to comparing, but also just like feeling so resentful of other people's success. And um yeah, I think with social media it's so typical to just keep up with everything, and sometimes you have to discontinue that, and it's okay to have a balance between keeping up and staying away, and that decision is completely up to you, to get to what you need in that moment. And it's important that you listen to yourself. I think a lot of people listen to the voice, like not the voices, but like the what other people tell them to do. Um and um yeah, when other people get too caught up in that, it really loses people's own pride in their own voice. And that's something I also said back like a few questions, but like really trust your voice and really know the power of your voice. And this was done like just talking to my friends or like doing debate or like something that really pushed me out of my comfort zone. So yeah, and that goes into actually our next question, when we talk about what role does failure play in rediscovering your passion.
Okay, so I feel like for this, oh, sorry, let me move the mic. So failure definitely plays a big role in rediscovering your passion and also, unfortunately, losing your passion. Um, but if we're talking about rediscovering, I would say this is a hard question to answer because normally when you think of failure, you think of, okay, you're gonna drop it. That's it. You give up and then that's it. But I would say with failure, if you're looking for a new passion, it's definitely a big way to start that journey. Um, and this is a sub question that I guess you put for this, but I wanted to answer that. It was like advice for someone who lost their passion. Um, I would say there's always a second path and a third, and so on. It is not the end of the world unless you let it be. You have to keep soul searching. You have to keep finding another passion. Or if you're strong enough, fight for your old passion. Especially if it's one that you've had for most of your life. Like, that's what some people tend to have. Like me, for instance, I have a really strong passion for science, and I've had a passion for science ever since I was young. And I always saw myself in a lab coat when I'd grow up, with those big goggles that make you look ridiculous, and holding like three flasks in one hand,
Yes.
just mixing around some
Woman in
random
STEM.
dishes. Exactly.
Yes.
Um,
Woman
like
in
that's just always
STEM.
how I saw myself. So
Period.
if I ever let simple failure, like, because I'm taking IB Chem right now, right? And this is like a really rigorous course. If I let one fail, I'm like, okay, my atoms test. Let's say I let one fail on that, determine that, okay, no more science. Like, what would I say to my younger self that was just so ready for me to, you know, have that PhD in chemistry? Like, it would just be really mentally straining for me in the long run. And so, yeah, I feel like losing your passion is honestly worse than just giving up. I mean, sorry, I worded that wrong. Losing your passion is worse than looking for a new one because it's easy to look for a new one, I would say. Like, okay, not easy, but like, I feel like it's more able to do than, I guess, giving up on your old passion. Um, because like you can just discover what made you passionate for that specific thing to begin with. But sometimes, if you've had that passion for so long, it's hard for you to remember what exactly got you into it. So it's hard for you to recreate that. So you're probably going to have to redo all the steps that it took for you to like this certain thing, which is why it's, like I said, it's really hard for you to lose a passion then regain it. So people tend to move on to something else. But then again, is your passion as strong as the first one if you're restarting at an older age? Like, can you really cultivate a passion in the same way if you're starting later on? So, basically, what I'm just trying to say is just don't give up on your old passion. That's like the easiest way to go with it. Like, keep pushing at it, because there's no going back if you choose to give up. Like, it's really hard, and like I've experienced that before, and it's really hard to go back for sure.
Failure is inevitable, it's just a part of life, but it's also often necessary to rediscover your passion. So when things don't go as planned, it forces you to reevaluate what truly matters. So, for example, failing at achieving the vision that I had for one of my projects that I was doing made me realize that I wasn't passionate about the outcome, but about the creative process itself, which brings me back to what Sam said about that it's about the journey and not the destination. So basically, failure strips away at the eternal expectations that you have and helps you reconnect with the most important aspect of it all, which is the reason why you started it in the first place. So, the advice that I have for someone that felt like they've lost their passion or sense of purpose, start small because passion isn't something that you find, but it's something that you cultivate. So, if you revisit activities that you used to enjoy or try to find new hobbies, volunteer for causes that you care about, etc., you give yourself the freedom to explore without judgment or pressure. Purpose often comes from contributing to something larger than yourself, so focus on building connections and experiences. And above all, please, please, please be patient with yourself because it's okay to take time to rediscover what creates that spark within you.
Yeah, failure can be really discouraging at times, but I would say use it as a reflection for growth. It's not the opposite of success, but it's just part of the journey. You could always take new approaches and try to think outside the box when one method fails, but it helps you reconnect with your passion. Um, I agree with the patience part. My advice for someone who feels like they're in a bit of a slump is that passion isn't always about being the best at something, like how the media portrays it, but
Mhm.
rather finding personal growth and joy. I think it's always relieving to talk with your friends and find support when others can offer perspectives or encouragement that would help you reconnect with yourself.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think failure can make you either redirect or try something new. Um, or push you to try the same thing with even more drive and passion. And I think it goes back to what Anastasia was saying. It's just like if I had failed something with like not well not failed, but if I had done something not as well as I expected, and I think we're changing that wording, failing and not doing something as well as you expected. And I would always, whenever not doing something as well as I wanted to, I would say I failed, and that's not only toxic to yourself, that's also toxic to other people when other people are have very different standards. Um, but I think that's not when you make a mistake, and that makes us human. And when you make that mistake, I think that just shows that you don't have to necessarily give up on something. And I think that's something that Anastasia was talking about that I really want to go back to. It's just like I also really love chemistry. Um, we are in this Mount Sinai program, and something that Hossein talks to us about.
Yeah.
He's our instructor. He always says to really embrace those mistakes and to really ask those questions. And I think going into this program, especially, I think I was so excited that I had gotten in the first place that I didn't really realize what actually had to be like what expectations had to be dropped of myself in the process of doing the actual research. And I was so focused on like the people and the kids at school that were like, oh, I had an internship at Columbia, and I did this biomedical research lab, and like and you know did this brown intensive program. And I ended up looking at that and just being like, that didn't really motivate me or cause me to change my disciplinary like view of just like pursuing the passion. It just made me feel like I wasn't as passionate as others. And I think I think it's important to just stay true to your own passion. I think that if I had done something like if I had done not as well on a chemistry test or something, I think it doesn't say anything. It just means that you have things to learn, and I think that's important. I think that's how we humans grow, and how we are able to be in school right now is through learning, and that's not done through making it's not done when we're being perfect. It's done when we're making mistakes. And um I think since we are really in rigorous schools, passion and pressure to succeed are both held to very such a high standard. And sometimes it's okay to have bad days, and failing something, like I said before, it doesn't mean you should stop. And failure isn't the end, it's a signal. It's to redirect you to a path that you were meant to take. And I say this because like some rejections are redirections. Like rejections, although upsetting at first, they turn your path into something that's like completely different, and that might be completely better for you. And it's something sometimes not what you want, but sometimes it's what you need. And um
Mm.
yeah, and I think failure is so misnomered. Like I misnomered it initially. I was like failed, but like I need to change that wording. And I think changing our view of failure from something that we are afraid of into something that we are accepting of is so impactful. And I say this knowing that we are very much in competitive schools where literally everyone has their own unique standards of what failing is. But whatever that may be, it's so important to know that you can't go anywhere without failure. And I think failure, we tend to snowball the impact of it, saying that, like, oh, if I fail this one question of this test, I'm not going to excel in the subject, I'm not going to get a PhD, and I'm not going to succeed in life. And that is a spiral, and that plummets our passion. And it's so crucial to stay present. And on paper, failure is a deduction, but in real life, failure can be a U turn. And later down the line, if we need to remember when we fail, um, if we can't remember when we fail, we won't remember what to fix. And our brain needs that trial and error mechanism to find our true passions. And yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm.
know it sounds corny, but
Yeah.
this reminded me of the song "Try Again" from Zootopia.
Oh my gosh, wait.
It's just like I don't know. It's just I felt the correlation as you were speaking. Um, just that when you fall, you have to get up and try again, rather than sit there and like take it. You just have
Yeah.
to fight. You have to fight to regain your passion. You have to fight to be happy. You have to fight to succeed. It's not just like I don't know how to explain it. It's not just like a straight road. It's a road with forks and turns
Yeah.
and twists. and you just have to like know that you don't you could take a wrong turn but still get to the right place. Like there will be more opportunities to succeed. If you fail once or twice, it doesn't matter, you will succeed in the end. And I want everyone listening to know that you are in the right place right now. You are in the place that you're meant to be right now. It might not be the best place, but it is the place that you need to be in right now. Trust me when I say that there
Yep.
will be the light at the end of the tunnel. I know it sounds corny,
It's
but
not.
there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you will get there.
Exactly.
It will
Exactly.
get
And you are
better.
stronger than you think. Yeah. Laura, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Sam. I think by failing, well, okay, by failing at something or just letting it go, there's a part of the process where the pressure of being perfect kind of fades away. And I think by removing all those expectations, it kind of encourages you to reassess where you went wrong and how to not go there again.
Yeah. I was gonna say one small piece of advice for someone who had lost their passion or sense of purpose. And um like you guys said, I think it's always important to start with being compassionate to yourself and being kind to yourself. And feeling lost isn't a sign of failure, it's a sign of growth. It's a sign of um again, redirection. And I think it's important to really cherish the times when you're lost, because I guess when you're really growing, it shows, and you don't really know how much progress you're making, but the progress that you're making, even how small it is, it's so important. And again, like with that passion, I think life seasons bring change and passions can evolve. And when passions evolve, you kind of also heal your inner child in some sense. And I think it's important to give yourself grace and avoid putting the pressure on yourself to feel passionate immediately. So let curiosity lead you gently into, instead of demanding instant answers. And I would say revisit what used to excite you, and that can mean taking a break from other people or just yourself. Sometimes losing your passion isn't about the passion itself, it's about the way you've been chasing it. And
Mm.
sometimes you're just trying it again to get into the groove of things, but you don't find passion by waiting for it. You uncover it by being brave enough to explore it and try again, experiment. You have to trust yourself in this case, because if you focus on the small wins, it's whether it's helping a friend, volunteering, or learning a simple skill, purpose doesn't have to be monumental. It can start with a small act of kindness. So I think it's important to celebrate the small wins. And whenever you're able to get yourself back on track, I think it just proves that you're trying, and effort is so important. And it when if you're online and you're in and you're watch listening to this and you're in like a deep rut, it's just like you watching this or like you deciding to like get help or like asking for help in itself is a sign of such immense strength. And um you don't need to find your purpose. I think sometimes living with intention creates it for yourself. And I think intentionally you don't give yourself credit where credit is due. And everyone doesn't fully acknowledge themselves and what they're truly capable of. And I think it's important to see like everyone has their own unique capabilities and talents and strengths. People, you guys are dancing, and people are really good at art. And I think it's, I think with passion, I think sometimes you can get really lost in that. And I would say I haven't played piano in so long, and I think it's because I was going through a bunch of different music teachers, and I think I was a really big listener with music. I'm going on a tangent, by the way. I'm so sorry, but with piano, with piano, they were just like, you need to learn how to play like I like look at the sheet music. I could not read sheet music, and also I'm very much blind, as you see with my glasses here.
Oh,
They're
we
not
know.
work. Yeah, I can't see. So yeah, and so I kind of viewed all of that criticism as a plummet to the soul. And I say that because like I'm currently not playing piano right now, and I don't think I remembered, especially when I was younger, I was seen as like the person who could play piano and would play at events and occasions, and was seen as the person who played at family like events. And now it's just like what happened to you, like, and now that's the question that people are asking. And I think that that's also like familial connections really also get to you. And I think it's important to, sometimes people can get in the way of your passion, and I think criticism is also sometimes it can get in the way of your passion, but let it help you. Let it not hinder it. And sometimes you grow out of passions and you grow into them. And I think that's just part of life. So yeah.
And that wraps up today's episode. Please make sure to follow us on Instagram at HSMSCTMB and the SOS MSC. We'll be sharing updates on making your own SOS chapter. If you or someone you know needs help, please don't be afraid to contact the National Suicide Hotline 988. Thank you guys so much for listening. Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Thank
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 you
you.
you for
so
Thank
having
much.
us. Bye
Have a
you.
bye.
nice night.